And then she'll pin her ears and try to bite you. She's very defensive.
Okay. Hey everybody, I'm here at Windy Hill Equine Rescue with Becky Shuchuk, and she's got a new rescue in that I'm going to be working with. So can you tell us a little bit about her?
Yes. She's directly behind me. Her name is Riata. We rescued her off a kill lot in Oklahoma at the middle of June. She came in with a group of 40 or so reservation horses that came from South Dakota. They're very feral, very similar to Mustangs, but they're not. They're feral on the reservation, and occasionally they'll gather them up and send them through an auction, and most of them end up on a kill lot. She came in with a 3-month foal at her side. He's doing really well, but she's still very feral, and we're making a little progress, but she's still very committed to being feral.
So can you tell me, like, what have you tried with her and what's worked, what hasn't worked, and kind of why you asked me to help here?
Okay. Well, first of all, when I brought her in, they are very feral. They're very much like Mustangs. They're wild. They've never been handled. I tried putting her in a squeeze. She was going to hurt herself, so that didn't work. I like to try to medicate them. Typically, they're very sick, and they need medication.
And you've done this a lot. Like, you've done this with other horses, and it usually goes pretty well with that system.
Even with really, really pretty wild horses, that worked pretty well. She was not having it. Like, she would have broken a leg or something. So her progress has been super slow, and so I asked Ryan. Ryan was conveniently here, and so I asked him if he could help me just get a handle on her and see what we could get done with her this week.
Yep. And how old is she?
Well, I've only had one glance at her teeth, but I think she's 6 to 7. And so she had a 3-month baby at her side. And she is bred back because she was in a herd with at least 9 stallions. Wow. And so she was bred back probably on her foal heat.
So what were you going when you adopted her? When you rescued her? Mm-hmm. What were you going? What information did you have that you were going off of to take her?
None, other than the group that I work with in Oklahoma, they desperately needed places to put. Most of them were mare and baby pairs. And so they needed homes for them. I really didn't want to take her, but I did because it was a kind of a got to. In her case, she would have shipped.
All right. Well, my goal, I think, for this session is to kind of get to know her, see where she's at with everything. You've done a good job of getting her gentler and seeing people as the food source, and that part. Yeah, so that's pretty good start. But obviously, actually, why don't I have you show me where you're at with her? Okay. What you can get done if you go in there with her, and then we'll start from there.
Okay, sounds.
So you'd usually go in with a longer pole?
Usually I can move around her fine. I'm okay moving around her. I keep an eye on her, but when I'm delivering her feed, I don't feel like I need a stick. But if I'm going to ask her for more, then I'm going to have a stick.
Yeah, I feel like I remember you telling me she was a bit defensive, or you thought she might be aggressive.
Defensive. Like, even when I do pet her or rub on her a little bit, she'll be like, okay, I'm done, and then she'll pin her ears and try to bite you. She's very defensive.
Okay. Hey, real quick, guys, I got an announcement that I want to make. By now, most of you guys are familiar with my Patreon page. It's where I post my whole program, and I can be your coach on there. But what I want to let you guys know about is, as of January 1st, the rates are going to double. So right now, it's $10 to have access to all the videos, $20 if you want access to the videos, and some coaching from me. That's going to go up to $20 and $40 as of January 1st. But if you guys join before January 1st, you're going to get locked in to the current rates, which is $10 and $20. So make sure you guys go on there. I'll leave a link in the description below. Also in the comments. Let's get back to the video. Well, you've made some good progress with her. But you think she doesn't know how to follow a feel?
Oh, no. I know she doesn't. In fact, I watch her because she has spun around and tried to put me before. Right there. See, still.
Don't get kicked, but. Okay, so
Oh,
we
you did
so
again, Peggy.
so I asked Becky to kind of show me where she's at, and it's pretty obvious that she would get dominant and tell you to leave and kick.
Yeah.
And I think this is interesting because I think a lot of people, when they think of a horse that's hard to catch or feral, that they're only afraid of you. Mm-hmm. And yes, she's afraid of us and being defensive, but that translates into her being aggressive,
Yes.
Fight versus flight. And it's interesting how many horses that are feral that grew up in a herd of other horses, how much stronger the fight instinct is versus. So the way the horse just acted with Becky is fight, not flight. So she's very defensive, worried about it, but her response is fight, not flight, meaning telling you to leave.
Yeah.
Pinning her ears at you, telling you better leave out of
She
here.
was swinging her rear end.
Yeah, swinging her rear end at you. And so this is a different approach. So where somebody could get in trouble with this is if they continue to try to approach her to get a halter on, giving her cookies, which is what a lot of people would try to do with a Mustang or a feral horse. They try to only use love and patience, basically. And so I'm going to take a little different approach. So obviously I could put a rope, I could rope her and teach her to follow a feel, which is going to be a huge step for this horse towards getting a halter on her. But before we do that, I need her to have a little more respect for humans. Respect not in the way people think about it, but it's a word. It's just, there's not really any other word to use to say that I need to teach her to leave and yield to pressure if I need her to. For my safety and your safety, she has to be able to yield away from pressure before we want to get that close to her to try to put a halter on, or we're going to get bit, nailed, either struck or bit or kicked or something. And so I just pointing this out because people don't realize how aggressive horses that are feral can be. And again, it's not because they're being dominant. They're going to a flight instinct. Horses have a flight and a fight instinct. And it just is interesting to me that you don't see it as often sometimes, but you don't see it as often in domestic horses. But horses that grew up in the wild, kind of more in big spaces in a big herd, feral horses, Mustangs or horses that grew up on a reservation, they will go to that fight instinct sooner. And so this is a very important lesson if you're somebody out there that's thinking about adopting a horse or taking in one of these horses. This is just something that's very critical that you have to be aware of, because I get quite a few messages about how to fix this, and I don't really like to give a lot of. I'm going to show you what I would do, but I wouldn't really recommend it for a lot of people because you could get hurt if you just made one little mistake with your timing, either did too much or didn't do enough. You could end up in the wrong, or just were standing in the wrong spot. You could get kicked or bit or struck pretty easily. So, all right, well, my turn.
Okay,
Thank you, Becky.
Yeah.
All right, so again, the tempting thing to do would be to go and try to make friends with her. But horses, even if you introduced another horse to the herd, they usually don't think about making friends as much as they think about showing each horse to horse, which one's the alpha horse and which one's not. So horses very much care about this, and I feel like this is a slightly controversial issue, and I have no idea why, because all you have to do is put some feed down and have 3 or 4 horses in a pen and see who gets to eat it and who doesn't. And it becomes very obvious the dominance games that horses play with each other. And again, I don't think she's being dominant with us. It's more that fight instinct. But what I'm about to do with her is very, very important. So I'm going to do a technique that I call owning space. I think it's the best way to look at it. And again, it's very natural to horses. When horses are yielding each other, they don't say, oh, yield your hindquarters, yield your forequarters, back up, side pass, circle, all this stuff. They just say, you need to not be here. You need to go somewhere else. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my life up with the flag a little bit and just drive her off of that spot. And then I'm just going to claim this spot here. And it does not have to be any more complicated than that. And I've actually worked with several horses that are were domestic horses that had learned to be very aggressive towards people because they didn't understand this game. They didn't have anybody that actually played this game with them to say, hey, I can go own your space. So now that I realize how sensitive she was to the flag, the first time you just take kind of an educated guess of how much to do. Now I know I don't need to do a lot, but I still need to walk over there. And you see her kind of approaching me there. So I'm just going to lift up my flag and just go to this spot. Now we're not in a round pen. It's super windy. There is a round pen that we could use, but it's super windy where it's at. And I thought she'd be a little more comfortable in her pen here versus if we bring her to the round pen, that's going to be a whole nother, you know, we'd have to drive her over there and a whole nother thing. So we're just going to work with her in her pen here. See, it's interesting that her first thought is to come to me. And again, that's where a lot of people would go, oh, retreat. They got two eyes on you, retreat, back up. I don't want that yet, because I don't, like, she could be coming up to say hi, but most likely she's coming up to say, hey, you need to leave, not me. And so I want her to give me a little bit different look about it. But the other thing is, I don't need to just drive her around and round pen her. I just need to show her that I can own her space. Now you see there, that had connection to it. She just left enough. You know, she didn't take off and get worried about it. She just said, oh, he's just gonna come and stand here. Because this is part of the pattern, is I'm just coming to this spot. I'm not chasing her around. I'm just gonna walk over there and say, hey, that's my spot now. You can see her challenge that a little bit. She kind of came forward towards me. And I know it seems weird, but this is what she has to understand first in order to safely, see there, she finally had a lick and chew and got relief going away from me versus coming at me. You know, up until this point, she's been fed a lot by people where you throw the feed, they walk up and pin their ears, and then the person leaves. And as you do that daily, they get pretty comfortable with, they can drive humans away when they want to. But we are also the same thing that makes them uncomfortable. So it's this funny balance of, I want her to be comfortable with me, but she has to be willing to yield at the same time in order to be able to go about it in a safe way. So, sitting here reading a book, giving her cookies is not going to solve the puzzle. That's what the point is. You would get, she would go after you. You know, if you went towards her at all or tried to, you know, do that. There's actually a video that's going around right now of a girl that's sitting on a bucket or something and has a foal, and she's trying to, like, you know, offering her hand out to touch it. I don't know exactly what she's doing, but the foal turns around and then she goes to touch its butt and it fires and kicks her right in the head. And like, this stuff happens very, very quickly, you know, and you could tell she felt a little uncomfortable in this video. I'll see if I can find it and play it for you guys, but you guys may have already seen that video going around, but this stuff can be dangerous if you don't go about it in the right way. Have you done this with her at all, Becky? Driving her around? A little bit. And why would you say you haven't done it more?
Because I've been too busy.
Okay, she's been busy.
Riding other horses.
I didn't know if it, like, felt unnatural to drive her away.
It's a time issue.
Okay. So I'm getting, like, you guys see it? That's what I would consider to be a very quality response to me walking. I'm walking with my body upright. I'm not trying to sneak around her and get around her. I'm coming towards her with a little bit of energy, kind of how I would approach somebody that I need to talk to, and before they start talking to somebody else, it's like, I'm making eye contact, I'm going towards them. It's like, hey, I'm trying to talk to you. That's the way I'm doing it. I'm not trying to do it in an overly fast or aggressive way. But you can see there I feel like she's testing the waters a little bit. That was a little bit more polite with how she did it there, so I didn't flag her the way she approached me there. But what I want to point out is that I'm going to shift how I approach her here in just a second. I'm going to drive her one more time. But this is a pretty delicate situation. Like, it would be pretty easy to get her, if I went too fast to scare her, or if I went too slow to have her come at me. So I'm going to deem that a pretty quality response. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my energy, my intention as I go up to her. And I'm going to do like half circles, and I'm going to try to get her to not leave now. So there, she made a couple steps towards me. And so I'm going to kind of like disarm her defense systems by milling around back and forth versus walking a straight line towards her. And I'm just trying to get her comfortable that, hey, when I approach you like this, you don't always have to leave. Now there, she decided to leave before I asked her to. So what I'm going to do there is I followed her until she gave me two eyes. So there's a subtle little change in what I'm doing. So I didn't go, I followed her, but I didn't do it with a lot of energy. And as soon as she looked at me, I stopped. So this is now the game. Now it's like, I want you to look at me with 2 eyes. You don't need to come to me yet. But I want to have this ability to walk towards her to drive her away, but also approach her without her leaving. And that's what I'm trying to build right now. So I'm going to do these little half circles where she sees me out of one eye and then sees me out of the other eye. And if she just kind of strolls a couple steps like that, I won't make too big a deal about it. But you can see I got 2 ears on me. So this is looking better. Now we can offer what we call the horseman's handshake to see if she wants to be curious. But that curiosity right there can quickly turn into coming at you. So I was really aware right there if I needed to get my flag up. But I know that I've already drove her away. So you can see where she's more comfortable now with me, understanding that she can walk away from me if she needs to versus coming at me to feel more comfortable. But now I have her hindquarters here. So I'm just gonna bother her a little bit by going to her hind end. So I'm just playing a little catching game here with her. And this is all in preparation for putting a rope on her and teaching her to follow a feel, which is one of the most important steps in the taming process when you have a feral horse. But what I like to do, I don't like to just come out and put a rope on them right away with no communication happening between us. I want to set it up for success by building in some rapport and some respect. Again, respect meaning appropriate response to pressure, not respect as in humans being respectful of each other, that sort of thing. It's similar, but it is different. And just for lack of a better word, if you guys know of a better word, leave it in the comments for me what I should be saying instead of using the word respect. Because I know it bothers a lot of people to think about like getting the horse to respect you. It's like they don't like the way that's stated. And I kind of agree, it's different than it is with people, but it does mean there is some inherent respect, as in she will move off pressure when I need her to. I like that. That was really good. Just give me that little step. So I'm kind of just testing out where those boundaries are with her, where she feels comfortable. I don't really want that. So there, I felt like she came towards me with a little bit too much confidence, and I know she's not that confident yet. And then she went to turn her butt towards me. So she was testing that a little bit right there. So I just drove her away and let her get relief over there. So I'm saying, you're okay to go away from me if you need to. But she's kind of thinking, just feed me and leave me alone and don't keep doing this. But the truth is, if she's going to live in captivity, we have to be able to trim her feet. We have to do vet work if she ever gets an injury of some sort. And so once you take these horses on as a project, you have a high level of responsibility towards them to get them tame and be able to handle living in a domestic environment, and fences and needing to have their feet trimmed and things like that. Luckily, her feet aren't too bad, so we have some time. But you're kind of like, once you take them off thousands and thousands of acres where they're going to kind of wear their feet naturally, you now have made a commitment to that horse of getting them gentle and tame in order to take care of them successfully. And I like that. That has curiosity to it, but I don't feel that fight instinct coming out. So I'm going to retreat there. I'm going to be happy with that. Now I'm going to get a longer stick. I'm going to keep my flag with me though. So now if she's bothered by this, now it'll follow her until she stands still, and then it can go away. And so that the game is, if a horse gets bothered with something you're doing, if it's not, as long as it's not flooding them and being too much, the idea now is that it stays with her. So if she gets bothered, this pressure will stay with her. I'm not going to cut her off. It's just going to follow her. There she stood still. Now it'll go away. And again, she knows Becky, and any of these horses that are feral, they get to know a person. You know, if I was feeding her and taking care of her regularly, she would know me more and I'd be able to get closer to her and that sort of thing. But this is just where I'm at with her, having just met her and having drove her away from me. And again, this is where people get funny about the idea of driving them away versus only trying to pet them and give them cookies. But you have to build in some safety boundaries into this process. You can't just focus on time and cookies. So you can see that didn't take long for her bubble to shrink there. So now I'll approach her and trade. And so what I'll do now is I'll either approach more with the tool or I'll approach more with my feet. So now the tool's going to stay away. I'm going to approach a little bit more with my feet, and then I'm going to bring the tool down. And this is just like a long buggy whip. And luckily Becky's done a good job with this step. Nope, you don't need to get any closer. I'm happy to have you out there right now. Thank you. So this is a big step. If you can get them where they're halfway gentle with you touching them with this, that makes the process of getting a halter on when you have a rope in your hands go that much smoother. So I like to kind of rub on their neck. I usually keep it up pretty high because when they're pretty feral, they'll strike at it pretty easily. But we're adding value to her just by her being this, handling me being this close to her without her being as defensive, where she wouldn't feel like she needs to bite me or strike me to have me get away from her. Like you can see, it's like it's not really bothering her to have me do this. That's what we're going for. So I just want to take a second to share with you guys about the kind of mission behind Windy Hill Equine Rescue. So Becky does an incredible job running this rescue. She's bringing in new horses all the time. And one of the things that I absolutely love that she's doing is she's adding value to the horses through training. She works with multiple horses herself. I've been here training at her facility for a week now, and she's nonstop all day long, getting horses out, riding them, adding value to the training. Becky has been a long-term student of studying horsemanship, and she really does an incredible job. She will also send the horses off for training and with various trainers in the Texas area, and just does an incredible job putting value into these horses, making them more desirable for you guys. So if you're interested in looking for your next partner, Windy Hill has several horses that are available and ready to go right now at the moment. And of course, as a rescue, they're always looking for funding and donations. So if any of you guys are interested in supporting Riata and the foal that's on the way, you guys can do that by going to the link in the description below, which is Becky's GoFundMe page. So go ahead and show her the love and support, and encourage her for what she's doing for all these horses. All right, so I think I'm going to leave her there on that thought for today. And then tomorrow, when I have a little bit more time, because it's going to be a pretty big commitment once you put a rope on there, tomorrow I think I'll come in and reapproach with this same scenario, and then I'll probably need to put a rope on her and teach her to follow a feel before we can think about putting a halter on her. So stay tuned.